I'm sorry, but I have to do it. I have to address our current conditions. Trump, the predictions of Edgar Cayce, what's true, what's not. I'm going to quote actual readings. But in addition, I'm going to tell you the most important spiritual warning and reminder about all of this because we're heavy into it right now. Are you ready for this? Millions of people are watching videos claiming Edgar Cayce predicted Donald Trump and a massive political event for 2026. Today, we're going to break down what the sleeping prophet actually said in the official archives, and I'm going to compare it to what's being said out there to these millions of people. And your biggest warning yet, that is the most important thing about all of this. I'm going to go through all three of these, so stay tuned because this is probably more important than any other video you've watched up until this point. Let's go. Welcome to Landria Onkka on YouTube. We're in it. We're in the midst of fear. It is time to break through because it's the emotion and frequency that changes our reality. I'm going to break down these predictions, some things that are going on out there. You might be watching them, and I want to remind you of something so critical. I realize that you may be feeling anxiety right now. You might be thinking, that peace that I was praying for, it's not happening. What they have predicted, yes, it's happening. And those of you who want to be right about those predictions are fueling it. The world has gone insane, but I'm going to bring some sanity into it today. Let's talk about this because it's real. The energy is shifting rapidly. In this video, I'm going to explore the alleged connections between the 20th century psychic Edgar Cayce. These are actual videos out there. I went and looked for myself, and the political future of Donald Trump in 2026. And though Cayce died decades ago, the source of this subject argues that his readings regarding a polarized leader in a period of great reckoning mirror current American events. Now, yes, we can speculate on a lot of his readings, but I'm going to point some things out that are pretty blatant that I want you to be aware of. These simultaneous challenges for the mid-2020s, including economic collapse, natural disasters, and a constitutional crisis, while these videos are ominous, they still say that these events are all catalysts for transformation rather than total destruction. Now, herein lies the challenge of it. They remind you that human free will exists and collective consciousness can still alter these predicted outcomes. But here's what I remind you. They're also placing fear in you with some of these predictions that are speculative, because we know Edgar Cayce never spoke of Trump or specific years, but I am going to go through what he did predict and when he did predict certain years. And I'm going to tell you what he said about our current timeline. According to one of these sources, these creators, the sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce predicted that a controversial leader's second term in office would be marked by three major crises occurring in rapid succession in 2026. The first predicted event is an economic shock that shakes global markets. Cayce supposedly described this as a crumbling of false foundations, where financial systems built on debt and speculation collapse suddenly. This crisis is expected to be triggered by the breakdown of international trade and alliances potentially linked to the leader's own trade policies. Hits a little close to home, right? Environmental crisis. The second crisis involves a dramatic increase in the frequency and intensity of natural disasters. Specifically, the source mentions, not Cayce, the source mentions water-related catastrophes on the east coast of America, including extreme weather, where the sea claiming what man had built. These events are described as natural responses accelerated by leaders who ignore environmental warnings. Well, I'm all for that. We know cause and effect. Constitutional crisis. The third and most significant crisis is a challenge in the foundations of American democracy. This scenario involves a leader refusing to accept limitations on their power, leading to clashes between institutions and repeated civil strife. A specific trigger for this crisis is described as the judgment of the builders, a moment of legal and public reckoning for those who built power on questionable foundations, reaching a crescendo while the leader is in office. This source notes that these crises are intended to serve as a catalyst for America's evolution, forcing the nation to examine its values and systems. I think we're forgetting the rest of the planet on this, right? America doesn't stand alone. The truth bomb here? Casey never mentioned Trump. He never mentioned modern political parties or specific modern presidents. There are basic terms that I'm going to review with you that squeeze Casey's broad statements about leadership shifts into today's partisan drama just to get clicks. And yeah, I might be getting clicks on it too, but I'll tell you how I want to get clicks because I want to direct your attention to something that's way more powerful than fear. So I'm going to walk you through Casey's actual dated prophecies that failed to materialize in the 3D world. Here's when he gave actual dates. The rising of Atlantis in 1968 to 1969 didn't happen. Now you could say, well, maybe, the Bimini Islands or whatever. Okay, we can stretch that a little bit, but it didn't rise. The massive earth changes and global pole shift by 1998. Now we could say that NASA has indicated that in 1998 they did notice that the poles were beginning to shift. Again, we're making it fit. The spiritual pivot. Did the world end in 1998? No. So was Casey wrong? No. Casey wasn't wrong. That's the whole point of the video. Nothing anyone predicts is in stone. And I have a big warning for you about that. Because Casey's readings were energetic signatures, not fixed 3D doom events. The pole shift in 1998 wasn't about the literal earth flipping. It was beginning of the great consciousness shift. Prophecies are spiritual markers, not literal cataclysms. We don't know if it was literal or not. Let's talk about the actual readings. I'm going to give you the reading numbers. Reading 3, number 976-26, given in 1944. This is considered a cornerstone reading for this era. In it, Casey spoke of upheavals in the 2020s and a shifting of the poles, which modern analysts interpret as extreme political polarization. So here's the source that used actual readings. The actual reading is reading 3, 976-26, given in 1944. It's a cornerstone reading for this era. He spoke of upheavals in the 2020s and a shifting of the poles, which modern analysts interpret as extreme political polarization. The reading describes a leader who's been celebrated, then rejected, being given a second chance or returned to position. Casey referred to this figure as a builder connected to towers and gold. This is when things can be formed any way we want, and we have to be very careful about this. Let's talk about what was presented and interpreted. Reading 3, 976-26, 1944. This is actually quoted from Casey. What was said? This reading discusses upheavals for the 2020s and mentions a shifting of the poles. It describes a period around 2026 where a leader who was celebrated and then rejected is given a second chance or a return to position. The reading uses the symbolism of towers falling, referring to towers of power and influence, and mentions a builder archetype connected to towers and gold. So let's talk about the truth. Casey never mentioned Donald Trump by name, as Trump was born after Casey's death. The connection to Trump's specific brand and Trump Tower is an interpretation made by modern researchers who see these as point-by-point parallels to current events. Reading 602-3, 1938. What was said in this reading concerning the future of democracy? Casey stated that America would face a choice point in the middle of the 2020s. What we're hearing out there confirms that the number 26 appears multiple times in the stenographer's notes for this reading. The context, the choice is described as a fork in the road between moving toward an evolved consciousness or falling back into authoritarian patterns. Reading 3, 976-18, what was said? What's being said out there? This reading predicts a period of civil strife and intense internal conflict. It describes a scenario where the nation comes close to internal armed conflict, and the military is forced to choose sides. The trigger? The source states that the reading identifies a contested action by the leader in 2026 as a trigger point, an action viewed as necessary by half the country and tyrannical by the other half. What does this sound like to you? Planting ideas, interpretations for old world fear. While they're still saying, yes, this is our turning point, we have free will, they're planting things that are interpretations of his readings. And I want to give you what was actually said. Are they true? The sources suggest that while the existence of these documented readings is a historical fact, their truth as fortune telling is viewed through the lens of probability. Cayce himself taught that the future is not fixed and that these readings represented probable outcomes based on the trajectories of the time. He emphasized that human free will and collective consciousness could shift these timelines, meaning the crises of 2026 are not inevitable if different choices are made. In summary, the readings are true in the sense they are documented records from Cayce's trance states, but their application to specific modern political figures remains a matter of interpretive analysis by researchers. Okay? He never named dates, he never named specific presidents, and he always focused on changing the timelines and the importance of changing the consciousness during times of upheaval. Okay? Characters of the president, the leader, the readings out there describe this leader not as a traditional hero or villain, but as a disruptor whose cosmic purpose is to expose the cracks in the foundation of the nation. Key attributes mentioned include the builder archetype, a figure tied to symbolic and physical towers and gold. Okay, we could say, the Trump Tower, you can say anything you want. The polarizer, a leader who would divide the nation more than ever before during a great change. Legal reckoning, a specific prediction called the judgment of the builders, where those who build power on questionable foundations face a legal and public reckoning while in office. Hello, need I say the name? A final choice. Cayce suggested this leader would eventually face a personal moment of truth, forced to choose between ego and service to determine if the nation transition is smooth or catastrophic. I don't think that's going to happen. Cayce emphasized that these events were probable outcomes rather than fixed fate, suggesting that human free will and changes in collective consciousness could still alter these timelines. Be careful of the interpretation of these things. Now, let's say all of these things are true. They are really coming true, and that we can place it on our current president, on our global events, on all the catastrophes happening. But what is the bottom line here? Here is the biggest warning about all of our current events. We've talked about this, and you've been watching my videos, and the biggest warning is not to take sides, because there are always sides that are right and sides that are wrong, and your side is always right, correct? Somebody else believes just as strongly in their side. Does it change anything? What changes? I just shot a video on quantum physics. This is truth. Waves as probabilities become particles when focused upon not just the attention, but the actual thought behind it, and the heartfelt frequency is the most important. If you have hate in your heart, if you're arguing, see, I knew this would happen, so and so predicted this, there will always be somebody who predicts gloom and doom or something negative that could come true, because every probability exists, and that is one of them that is true. There is also a predictor saying that we are going to use this to transfer our world into peace because we're sick of it. We're tired of it, and we refuse to say that this is how things are going to end for us. And this is the era where we demonstrate and recognize our true power. And what you're going to see here, and this is March, you're going to see some reckoning and truths coming out about what we are, our origins, and our true powers. And we're going to start using them more and more, because a lot of you still don't believe that you hold it. And you believe that those in power, that they rule the world. Well, they can do a lot of damage. And guess what? As you can see, There are a lot of participants in that, enough that can do some serious damage. But I want you to start listening to the people and not those who tell us that what they're doing is right or wrong. And none of us will have the real truth or know what's going on behind the scenes. So here is the most important part about all of this. The Cayce readings, the fear-based mongering and interpretations out there are all going to take you down a negative pathway that reinforces that pathway. Here's the warning. This is the test. This is the very test we've been warned of, that this will push you to the brink of sadness, anxiety, losing hope, fear, believing that that's how things are when you absolutely can change it. We can change anything. Have you ever heard of people having the worst diagnosis and a miracle happens and it's turned around? How does that happen? The same thing can happen on this planet with any situation. If you don't believe it, then you don't believe in the power of Source. And Source is unlimited. Anything can turn around. These incidents, these situations are the potential turning point for us that are pushing us to the brink of making changes so that we never live like this again. We were warned of this, and it's happening. Going into fear and losing your hope is exactly the test, and you don't want to fall in that basement trap. All right? Because there is a penthouse. And these next few years, while we're opening up the biggest spiritual consciousness ever to have been known on this planet, and reinforced by people who are demonstrating that there is another way, you're going to see it. If you do not join that movement, then you will believe that those interpretations and predictions, that's just how it is. And you will not contribute to the other probability that is equally as powerful. This is your biggest warning. Why politics lowers your vibration. I barely watch it. I had friends over in the Middle East and I was contacting them, telling them to get out of there. And when they touched base, they were never more happy to be in this country. We are privileged here. Not everyone has this privilege. We must live in the world where everyone feels safe. How do we make that happen? So I want you to know, focusing on Trump, elections, government control completely derails a light worker's mission. When we obsess over who's in power in the 3D matrix, we give away our creative energy. You're focusing it over here. Okay? The true meaning of global upheaval, the current political chaos, which Cayce did sense energetically as an era of upheaval. He did talk about this as the necessary crumbling of old systems to make way for the Aquarian age. Dolores Cannon tie-in. Since you guys love Dolores Cannon, and so do I, Dolores Cannon talked about the new earth splitting from the old earth. The political drama is the old earth fighting to survive. Of course it is. I did a video and I want to refer to this because I want to get this right. If you want to interpret things the most negative way, that's your prerogative. But I'm going to share you a video I shot. I said, what if Donald Trump ends up to be the president of peace? Why? Is it because I'm a supporter or not? It had nothing to do with anything, I think. Because I'm going to tell you what, I'm right here on everything. Everything and everyone. Their behavior and actions is all I look at. And my behavior and reactions to that is the most important thing, all right? Those are our tests. I was hoping that he wanted so badly to go down in history for being the president that brought peace to the world that he'd actually pull it off. But he went in a different direction. Is it right or wrong? Some of you will argue that, but I will never stop believing that even the worst possible situation can turn around, and those who you may have horrible feelings toward can turn around also. I will never stop believing that. But it's not about them. It's about you and I and where our heartfelt coherence is going. That new earth that Dolores Cannon spoke of, we're in the middle of it. And we're having to make a choice because this is what pushes us to make a choice in the most challenging of situations, not when everything is wonderful. You wouldn't make a choice if everything was wonderful. You'd say, I'm in heaven. I'm living my 3D wonderful world. It's not till it gets shook up that pushes you to make that choice. This is the biggest point of this video. The 2026 energy shift and your power. Now, we talked about Chris Bledsoe. Supposedly some big things will happen in March and then October, maybe April. We don't know. It all depends on us. And the more you focus on these videos and you have that fear, and then we have this back end message, but we can change it. Yes, don't focus on that in the first place. Let it go. Get what minimal information you need. And I want you to focus on everything in your life and your thoughts and how you interact with other people and stay away from the conflict, the separation, the arguing. If you find yourself arguing, you're in the basement no matter what the subject matter is, no matter what it is. It's conflict. It is separation against the one source that is the very thing that is all things on our planet. So if 2026 isn't a political doom timeline, what is it? It's the awakening. I warned you about this to get ready for it, not in a negative way, but that you don't have to fear it when it comes, but it's not going to feel good. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not like, oh, we're in the awakening. I'm so happy. No, when people are struggling and in pain and fear, there's no happiness in that. There are choices, and it is time for us to make ours. The awakening is the 2026 portal for massive manifestation and spiritual awakening. You didn't incarnate right now to worry about a politician. You won't even care about that when you leave this body. You came here as a volunteer to hold the light while the old systems collapse. It doesn't matter if it's this argument or this conflict or whatever it is. Holding fast in light is the only great influence that you have on that will change it in the most positive way. This is your biggest takeaway. Casey's message was always about human spirituality, evolution, not political drama. He always said that we affect even these cataclysmic things that happen on our planet. When do we start focusing on it? More and more. It has to be you and me. And becoming that new person that no longer thinks the way you did, lives the way that you did, that contributed to this planet's destruction, that used makeup or anything that harms animals that we test on, that harms our planet. It starts with you, not what's happening over there in another country. It starts here. Look around. How are you living? It has to change, my friend. If you are ready to stop doom scrolling and start creating your reality, I have a free masterclass waiting for you right now in the description, landria.com, free inspiration, breakthrough fear. I have several masterclasses that are free for you. But a lot of you, it's not as exciting as hearing the gloom and doom or predictions by somebody. Predictions can never be true because we can change them. That means they're only warnings of what could happen if we stay in our 3D life. I have a video coming out about the Hopi tablets. What did they predict? Because all 8 of their predictions have come true. And the 9th one, we're in it right now. And it depends on our choices. We have a lot to discuss, but unfortunately, we just dove into the biggest shift possible that's going to demonstrate the old and new earth while people are awakening more than ever before. And I promise you that is happening and wonderful things are being revealed. In fact, I'm going to do a video. I'm going to show you some things that are going on out there, true things that are happening that demonstrate we are going into a super high frequency. And this side is going to behave worse than you've ever seen or could imagine. And it's revealing a lot. It's revealing things. And a lot of this is meant to be distractions for those things. And so keep your eyes wide, your heart open, and be the observer. You know, the observer effect. Observation creates. Choose neutrality. Taking sides means that you are choosing a timeline with that thought. All right? Keeping balance and knowing that this is going on. We can't deny it. But this is also going on, and you get to choose your side as far as your frequency goes, knowing that all of it exists at once. This is your biggest choice point right now. And the most important thing about this video is where you're placing your focus. So I hope you'll subscribe. Please like my video, ring that bell. I've got more coming out because we're going to be hitting some serious stuff, especially here in March. It may shake you up a little bit. Trust me, every single thing that's going to happen in your life right now is an opportunity to make a different choice that you never imagined was available to you, that you wouldn't have made if certain things didn't happen. Maybe somebody has left you, has died. Maybe you have a relationship that has ended. Maybe your job or income, it's all unstable. This is the old world collapsing. There is another choice in that, my friend. There always is. But not if you don't seek it. You seek and you shall find. Know it is done. Heart coherence, you have to feel it here. So spend time and see that beauty, see that ideal situation. Know it's a probability. And then the observer effect is by observing it, you connect to it, you're entangled with it, it actually forms in the 3D world. You don't believe me? If you don't, go watch some science videos. I don't know what else I can tell you. We know Christ created miracles. I've got some interesting stuff about that too. So please subscribe. If you haven't read my book, it was meant for this total timeline here. It will empower you. I talk about the tipping point that we're already in. And also, the Conscious Creator Vault is coming out. So when you sign up for my free email list, it's being announced here in March. It's called the Conscious Creators Vault. And every 30 days, I train you on soul alignment. I talk about chic sustainability. That's living amazing, beautiful life, not struggling to create a simple, beautiful world, but actually living a more quality life. And then conscious contribution. How are you earning? Some people are going to have to switch out of how they're earning. It's not going to work because that world is going to collapse, right? It's happening right now. AI, you can talk all you want about AI, but it's still a choice for you. Where in that do you use anything for positive means versus negative ones? It's true about everything that exists on the planet, including your worst enemy. They are one. They are part of us. They are the ocean. You can't separate the drop from the ocean. You can try. It's still part of the ocean. You are whole and perfect, strong and powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy. And I hope you'll go into my free inspiration because I have a summit that I'm a speaker in at the end of March. March 28th, it's a Saturday. This is going to be old real quick. And if you're in my email list, you'll get that announcement. It's free and it has a lot to do with hypnosis, manifestation, some really cool stuff. A friend of mine asked me to participate, and yes, I'm going to be there. And I'm going to talk about the Conscious Creator Vault and how we can change who the I am is into the I am. You are whole and perfect, strong and powerful, loving, harmonious, and perfect. You're perfect. No side taking. Take your worst possible enemy and ask yourself if you can send compassion. Can you send compassion? There's your test right there. Are you separating with hate and blame? That is not a human being. It's just a frequency, making a frequency choice. That can change just as quickly as anything else on this planet. Wish that for that person. Wish that for our planet. Wish it for humanity. And send your blessings every day, no matter what. That's what Christ did. Forgive no matter what. Not because anybody's really done anything wrong, but because, as he said, they know not what they do. Ignorance. But we're going into consciousness now. I'll see you in the next video. We're going to talk more about this. I'm going to tackle some subjects that might surprise you. Namaste.